one thing to bear in mind. Also, meiosis turns diploid to haploid. And mitosis makes exact copies. So we're going to see this further. To keep all of this stuff straight, these are the things you want to keep in mind. Haploid, diploid, one copy, two copies. Meiosis turns diploids into haploids. So we're not going to worry about interphase, prophase, metaphase, and all those details, meiosis 1, meiosis 2. The main mission of meiosis is it's going to turn diploids into haploids. Okay? And mitosis makes exact copies. We're used to thinking of mitosis turning diploid into diploid, but it also turns out it can turn haploid into haploid, as we'll see in a minute. But that bit of terminology is important. The last thing I want to say before we get into detail is these are life cycles that I'm going to show, and once around equals one generation. So what do I mean by that? We're going to show it as a circle. But if you think of life history, so it's like my parents produced me, I produce my kids, they'll produce further grandkids, etc. You could think of it as a line of generations. It's simpler oftentimes to draw as a circle where you have a person makes eggs and sperm, makes a zygote, grows into an adult. That adult makes eggs and sperm, grows into the next generation, grows into the next generation. Right? So we're going to talk about those in plants, animals, and fungi because they're interesting and different. And they start simple and then it gets weird. So you have to get ready. So if you turn to the next page of today's information-packed handout, you will see, this. Not in nifty colors, but here we go. So that's kind of the squunched version of what you guys have got. So what we're going to do, and what you're going to need to be able to do, is compare and contrast these things, sort of like your classic freshman English paper, right? Compare and contrast. So I'm using the same symbols to try to show what's the same and what's different. So this is your classic animal life cycle. Right? You can start anywhere you like. It's a life cycle. You start with an adult. Now, elephants don't do any asexual reproduction, but there are some animals that can reproduce asexually. And that would be just more, it would be like elephants, if you cloned elephants, or Hydra, for example, is an animal that reproduces asexually. Adults undergo meiosis. Meiosis I will show with a dotted line. So dotted line is meiosis. Let me change colors. So here we go. So dotted line equals meiosis. And then we sort of show where it happens here. Poof, you get meiosis, all right? And we color code the lines. Diploid is blue. So it's diploid, diploid, diploid. Meiosis happens, poof, you get haploids. That's why it shades from blue to red. Right? Red means haploid. Heterokaryotic is even weirder. We'll get to that later. You make haploid. In males and females, you make gametes, haploid gametes, eggs and sperm, by meiosis. Those come together at fertilization. So there's a couple other symbols. So the little heart, you know, Valentine's Day, is when two different organisms come together. In animals, it's always a male and a female. So they come together, and you mix eggs and sperm, and fertilization happens. That's a little smiley face. And that turns to, I know, please, exactly, right? What, I mean, Roy, it's okay. It's not the worst thing in the world. So also, I didn't know what other font to pick. So the haploid egg and sperm come together. You get fertilization. You get a diploid zygote. That goes through mitosis, grows into adult. You got another generation. You go around and around and around. So if this is me, produced eggs and sperm, zygote gave rise to my kids. They're going to have kids, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a whole bunch of color coding. Blue is diploid. Red is haploid. Dotted, solid lines, mitosis. Dotted line, meiosis. Make sure I made all my notes. So this is solid line equals mitosis. And colors indicate ploidy, whether haploid or diploid. And the heart equals two different individuals come together. All right? So, questions about that sort of that animal, and that should be pretty familiar, but I'm drawing in this particular way because I'm going to use these symbols when things get weird. So I want to make sure everybody's with me on what's going on here before we get into weirder territory. So what about an adult animal who reproduces asexually? Elephants can't, but some microscopic ones can. Like your classic planarian worm can break into pieces and reproduce asexually. So you don't need another individual to do that, and it produces a clone. So some animal adults can reproduce asexually. That's just the point of showing.